So it's a little bit off topic. I mean,
that's okay.
You're talking about
we adjust.
Market right now, but both of you are a huge advocate for gratitude, and that kind of, delivers your energy and how you guys interact with, everyone, especially you, Gary, on social media and stuff like that. So my question for you is, how do you become
grateful?
So grateful, yeah, exactly, to have this energy, especially from Tony's position of just I dove into your documentary on Netflix, and that was actually the first time I was exposed to you. Actually, my father, who owns an independent agency in Connecticut, very successful, he quoted you as a huge inspiration. So I kind of dove into your content and fell into kind of your hands and your guidance. So
they're big ass hands too, by the way. Jesus.
So go ahead.
Well, listen, thank you for the question, Tony.
Your question is, how do you create the gratitude? I'm not quite clear.
Yeah,
go ahead. How do you become so grateful, and because of that, you live a life of...
I think this is a great first question, Brett. Thank you so much, because I actually think he nailed it, which is, I actually think he's right. In what I see in you and from others, gratitude, it's incredible what gratitude does.
Well, the two things that mess everybody up are anger and fear. When you let them dominate you, you're in trouble. And you can't be angry and grateful simultaneously. It's the antidote. It's the only antidote that really works. And you can't be fearful and grateful simultaneously. So for me, to answer his question, I don't hope I'm going to be grateful. I have a system like anything in life. If you're a great pilot, you know how to fly a jet, you still have a checklist. Because if you miss the checklist, the consequences are too big. So I'm not a big meditator. My meditations have been active, it's been physical, it's been in nature, it's been ripping things open, it's being on stage. But I started a few years ago doing what I call priming. And what priming is most people think their thoughts are their thoughts, when really your thoughts have been primed by the environment. That's why you want to create the environments like you create and I create, because it makes you be your best. But specifically, there was a study where they took a group of actors, they had them go out to 200 people, and the only thing different, they walked up to each person, and the only thing different was they held a cup of coffee. They'd walk up to you, a stranger, and go, would you hold this for a second? They'd look down so you can't say yes or no, and you'd end up taking it. They get their phone, they adjust it, they take it back and say thank you. That's the whole thing. Same facial expression for every person. Only difference, half got an iced coffee, the other got hot coffee. Now, 30 minutes go by. They send out an assistant, a research assistant with a clipboard, and they come up to these same individuals and say, if you give us 2 minutes of your time, we'll give you $20. Will you just read these 3 paragraphs and tell us what you think of this character? There's a couple questions. They read the 3 paragraphs and they say, what do you think of the main character in this little story? 81% that were given iced coffee say the person is cold and uncaring. 80%, a 1% variance of those who are hot coffee say the person is warm and connected and caring, with nothing else but coffee 30 minutes earlier, ice cold. I could tell you 50 of these. So what I do is I get up every morning and I make a radical change in my state, and I have a simple deal with myself. I prime for 10 minutes every day. Because if you don't have 10 minutes, you don't have a life. There's 100%. No excuse. So I come in, I do this radical breathing change, these 3 sets of 30 breaths where I bring the air in and explode it out my nose, because I'm sure you know from Eastern philosophy, the breath is like the string on a kite. The mind is the kite. Yep. You can change the mind through breath. Yep. So I do this radical breathing, takes a minute. Then I do 3 things for 3 minutes, really simple. I take 3 minutes and I focus on 3 specific individual things that I'm grateful for, but I don't think about them intellectually. I step into the moment, remember it, feel it, and so what it does is it activates it not as a thought, but as a biochemistry. Then I do 3 minutes of prayer and blessings, starting with my family and moving out to everybody, my clients, friends, people I meet. And then I do 3 minutes on what I call 3 to Thrive, where I focus on 3 important outcomes that I have, that I want to accomplish, but I don't think about want to accomplish it. I see it, I feel it, the experience is done, I feel grateful. That's your move. I actually go 15 or 20 minutes after because it feels so good, but what's happened is now you're primed. You're not hoping you're in prime time, you are in prime time. And to me, that's how I do it. And once you prime yourself, you start noticing things to be grateful for all the time. And when I asked Sir John Templeton, the first billionaire investor, international investor in the whole world, started with nothing, built to that. When I asked him, I said, what's the secret to wealth? I'll never forget. He looked at me and smiled, and he said, Tony, it's what you teach. And I said, well, I teach a lot of things. Which thing? And he goes, gratitude. He goes, you and I, how many billionaires do you and I know that are miserable human beings and they're so unhappy? He said, they're poor. And if you've got $1 billion, but you're frustrated and angry and sad all the time, your life is frustrated, angry, and sad. How many people don't have nothing, but they're grateful for their family or for their health, and they're there? So that is the game. It really is.
To me, it comes down to its cousin, which is perspective.
Yes.
So I do something very similar. Every single day, I make pretend that my mother, dad, sister, brother, wife, or children are killed. Now I know this is a different version of it. I know, you didn't expect that one?
You crazy son of a bitch.
I know it's a little different.
Yes, they get stabbed in the eye and then they take out the groin.
Like it's sometimes even in detail, but I will tell you, it's very fleeting. It usually happens within the but I promise you, I know it's a little left field. It's insane what that perspective does for me. Nothing, and I feel it.
It's contrast.
And I feel it. And I feel it in my soul. And it just makes every bad thing. And by the way, and I'm sure for your business, when you're the last line of defense, you know how they say occupation on the doctor form? The last time I filled it out, I said firefighter. Because that's what I think I do for a living. Like, it's just problems. Yeah. Like when I get done with this interview, I'm gonna look at my phone, 7 problems, 7 fires to put out. Like, that's what I do. For me, it's perspective. Like, I don't understand how people don't get that there's 7+ billion people, that there's so many people that have it worse than you.
Look, if you live in this country, I feed 100 million people a year, I care. But if you live in poverty in this country, you're the 1%. You're not the 99%.
I know.
2/3 of the planet lives on $2.50 a day, $900 a year. If you're making $18,000 a year, I don't want you to make $18,000, but you got to start with gratitude that you're one of the richest humans on earth.
You're preaching.
It doesn't feel like it, but you are.
Preaching.